This is probably one of my favorite parts of the film. They're all my favorite parts, but the look of the film from a very early stage, I knew that I wanted to sort of combine like Norman Rockwell and J.C. Leyendecker, J.C. both being two of my favorite painters. But we had this really incredible team that we were working with. We had Zach Retz, who was doing production design, and his paintings are like, they're just pure beauty. His color design, his color theory, and his paintings, they just grab you. They're incredible.
My role basically was to understand what Dave's vision for the movie is, and then each step of the process through making the film, making sure that we stay true to that vision. So all the artwork, when things get passed on through the pipeline, we stick true to that initial vision. My role is basically the inspirational art, and then Weta does all the magic, like taking the paintings that we do and then making them work in the production pipeline. Brad and Dave, from the beginning, they said they wanted the movie to look like my paintings, which is awesome to hear. So then I can just paint how I want to paint.
We had Max Narciso, who is a insanely talented character designer who has this huge breadth of what he can design with characters. You know, we worked together and he really like locked into what the look of the film was that we developed for this film in particular.
Our challenge was, okay, we put everything on the table and then try to figure out what is the best way to represent this movie. The influence was different, honestly. I remember that we found a caricature of John Lennon, what we found in Pinterest maybe. So we not really play just with my portfolio, but we looking for inspiration everywhere.
And then taking that production design, paintings and character designs over to Weta, that goes into Keith Miller's team, who was our visual effects supervisor.
I knew when we first started the project that the biggest hurdle was just going to be developing the visual style into something that translated well into 3D, essentially. You know, Zach Retz, the production designer, came with really, really amazing, beautiful, beautiful artwork. And there's so many details inside that, the detail of the brushwork, the detail of the line work. But we had to figure out a way to translate that in a way that that makes sense spatially, and try to figure out what details are important to preserve in that translating process, what these details are important to extrapolate from and kind of start to develop from there.
And Keith's got a really great view of how everything fits together. So we had an incredible team with Thilvin Cabezas was like look and lighting, Keith, you know, they all worked. It was a little transparent to me at times because they were all presenting great things all the time. But the way that they were able to take Zach and Max's designs and put them on screen was incredible. And then to finish it off, we had David Cole, who's an incredible artist in doing DI for the look of the film. He's done Dune, and he's worked with Denis Villeneuve a lot, and he's an incredibly wonderful human being.
Director and producer brought the show to me. I'd worked with Brad previously on Book of Life. And then I sat down with the director, Dave Mullins, and we spoke about what he was intending with the show and what mood and nuance that we could bring to the piece through color correction. Obviously, with CG created footage, it's all lit pretty well and controlled, unlike in the real world where there's a lot of things that you can't control.
We could just talk color theory and how do we want to push the color, you know, this was, you know, I'd sort of show him the color script that Zach had painted and how we want to push the final look of the film. And he had so many tools that he could use, you know, like there'd be areas where we want, you know, I really wanted the film to start with this bleak, the sort of suffering and pain of the soldiers, and then as the humanity kind of comes back into the film, we're kind of bringing up the saturation, we're bringing up a lot of the contrast, and he was so great at doing that.
Most of what you bring when you deal with animation is the nuance and the subtlety and directing the eye so that the audience look at particular things, or if there are key elements we are enhancing those so that the emotional reason for a shot in the story is brought about, so that the audience can connect to it, so that the continuity is good, and so that, the viewer can be immersed in the story.
You know, at Weta, we shot the battle scenes. They're very much overcranked film speed. So the idea was, if you look at for example, the beginning of Saving Private Ryan, we have, in that film, you have high film speed. It's very grainy, but it takes out a lot of the motion blur, and it gives you this very grainy, gritty, startling, stark sort of staccato motion that you get, which is really well suited for fighting in war and something that's supposed to be physically uncomfortable. So when you're watching it, and so we ramped into that over the battle scene with Weta, and we also were getting more film grain, and so they were doing a really good job of that. And then Dave Cole would take it and push it even further. And one of the things he said, which I learned, he's like, next time let me do the film grain. I'm like, okay, because we spent so much time trying to ramp up the film grain from shot to shot. He's like, I can just do that, it'll be fine.
From the key creative, we landed upon a look that it wasn't too far off where the footage came in, because as I said, a lot of effort had been done by the production designers and the visual effects team to really hone what the images look like. What we were doing was really polishing it up, honing it, and just making sure it had good emotive impact in key scenes.
We had a really great looking picture by the time it got into his hands, but to get exactly everything you need out of lighting, you really need an artist like that to take it and really tighten down the screws. And David has so many tools in his arsenal of what he can do with, just saturation, color, contrast. And it sounds like, what's really happening? Is it really changing that much? It does. And one of the things that Dave did was, from shot to shot, everything, when you wanted it to feel together and coherent, he was able to just dial everything just a little bit, so the whole scene felt like it belonged together. And then when you wanted it, we're doing parallel action, we're cutting from one location to the next, and you really wanted it to pop, he would really push it. And even trying to get that blood red at the climax of the film, the way that he was able to push the color.
The final battle, so how we go from being forced over the top of the trenches and into no man's land as the two opposing armies are coming towards each other, and that transition that we had to go from with the different sky colors as the bird came in, and then the grittiness of that brutality of war. When you're watching it, I hope that the audiences are just drawn into the moment, but there was actually a lot of work to get that transition over that period of time and to draw the audience into those key moments.
Yeah, the look of the film was just an incredible handshake between production design, character design, lighting, visual effects, all the way into DI and the film grading. It was such a holistic effort, and everybody worked so well together.